Legends, we're into round 12. Mr. Lockie Smith is back, and we're going to go through his team. Open up the floor, mates. How did you go this week? Obviously not amazing under 900, but what are the plans going forward, and can you claw it back?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have too many Warriors in my team. Just Sean Johnson out this week, and I've got a bunch of really important Dolphins coming back. I think it's going to be going pretty well. Tapine is finally getting over 50 minutes, and although people can probably jump on him cheaper than I bought it on, he's going to be pretty good. Alex Johnston, I just wish they'd gift the ball to him. How did Tane Milne on the other wing score 2 tries? It just annoys me so much. Hopefully they go left more in round 13 when Latrell and Campbell-Graham are out.
That's true. Yeah, the Campbell Graham one's been the thing, hasn't it? And that's why Johnson hasn't scored the amount of tries, because they are able to go right to a strike weapon, which they haven't really had in recent times. So, yeah, that's very frustrating, obviously. But, it's weird that you still got under 900. Obviously, no Luki hurt, but you had Payne Haas and, Taps and DeBellin in that mids. Like, it looks very sexy, that midsection. And then it's, Cleary and Johnson and Bird, and that's about it, really, hey?
Yeah, it was a little bit dire. Other than that, Hosking, pretty much all of us had. Manu was a down one. Teddy with 15, that really hurt. Like, I look, he'll probably make Origin, but I don't think he's. I think he's pretty much over as a keeper now. He just does not look as effective. I'm tossing up whether to sell him this week, actually, because even though against the Dragons with no Manu in the spine hogging the ball, I just don't really trust him that much anymore, hey, which is pretty shocking compared to what we thought probably about 6-7 weeks ago when the Roosters were usually supposed to rev up.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was super frustrated with him. Obviously, not like I think didn't touch the ball once in that first 20, and it was when they got a repeat set and he kicked it, and nothing happened from that. And then he didn't touch the ball the first 20 minutes of the second half as well. So like, there's no chance he's scoring points with that. But I'm hearing everyone looking to trade him this week, and I completely get it. But who are you going to trade him to, for one? And then secondly, the 3 scores before that, they were all over 40 and one over 50. So his price at about that 40 mark, right? So who do you trade him to other than like Walsh? And that's still a gamble, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty set on trading him to Ruben Garrick. I really like how he's stepping up a bit this year with Turbo sort of running at 70%. He's increased his meters by 30 and doing a lot of goal kicking. He hasn't even scored as many tries as last year, and in uninjured games, he's still averaging like 44 on the wing. I think he's going to be a really nice for round 13, round 16 wing fullback player.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to have to think about myself as well. But yeah, the Teddy one, completely okay if you want to hold this week, obviously with them playing the Dragons and no Manu there. Hutchinson will actually pass the ball. We know that. And it's actually funny. The last time the Roosters actually were doing pretty well, they had so many injuries, and Hutcho was their 7. So he definitely is one of those guys that this is obviously his position. He's a halfback, and I think that he can direct them around it, and he will give Teddy the ball. It's like, oh, you're better than me. You're faster than me. You can have this one, and you can do the job, and I'll just direct you around. So I think either way is fine. I completely get it. If you're looking to sell him anyway next week, then I understand why you would trade him out. That is completely fine. So yeah, like setting your team there, mate, setting up for round 13, you're pretty happy with where you're at? Will you be able to get the 13 across the starting squad?
Yeah, I think so. I've got probably about 4 more players that I need to add to my squad, but I think I can do that. I've saved pretty well on trades. I've still got over 20. It's going to go okay, I think. I might look to bring in Luki. I was cheering when I waited on him and he scored that 19, but I ate some humble pie last week, and a lot of players pushed ahead of me in the ranks because of that massive score.
Yeah, I don't think anyone brought him in last week, but he was brought in by about 20% or 25% of the top 1,000 there, which obviously hurt you for sure. And then Hines going big in that last game was probably the 2 that I'm noticing that hurt you. And apart from that, obviously everyone, even if you had Drinky over Teddy, it was 18 points. Like, there was no real standout. And then Johnston, like trying to get a 40 out of that position maybe would have been ideal. But there's your squad, mate. Let's move to Billy Smith as one of the big purchases last week. And done really well again this week with the 430k. I don't know if this is wrong here, but Footy Stats has him as pretty much owned by no one, and I believe that's incorrect in the top 5,000. So a lot of people brought him in last week, and I think a lot of people will do the same this week with a 62 and a 60. What are your thoughts with his negative break even?
Look, he looks absolutely exceptional at the moment. Even even when they got flattened in these last two games, he scored 260s. That isn't sustainable as a centre, but it's fantastic signs. We know that he's been talked up for a while, and finally, after 3 ACL reconstructions, maybe we can finally see why. I think I would buy him only if you're selling another Rooster.
Okay. So you go Teddy to him if you had the wing fullbacks?
Yeah, if you've decided to sell Manu and you don't like the uncertainty with if he goes out 14, 15, something like that, I would look to sell Teddy or Manu, but he doesn't play round 13, so he is cash and mid-season origin plans rather than for right now.
Yes, okay. Look, personally, for me with Smith, the reason I would bring him in is for obviously the cash generation and potentially scoring, but mainly for that sort of round 14, 16, and then obviously 17 and 20 as well. So you're getting for all those rounds, or even if you sell him in round 19, that would be fine. So if he can score, I think he can average like a 35 or so. Like, he hasn't scored a try yet, and everything is up for him. Meters gained are up. The tackle breaks are up there as well. Tackles is the big one for me. He looks like he's really ripping in on that side of the ball as well. And for him to have 4 errors and still get a 60, it just shows that he is their only guy at the moment that is able to show some class and some skill, because their team sucks at the moment. So that would be my general theory. If you have the allotment of centres in your squad, Jack Bird, Lemuelu at the moment as you're starting round 13 guys, and obviously 14 as well. You could use Smith on the bench in 14, whatever, that's completely fine. But both of those guys are out in 16. So do you have centre plans for round 16? That is the question you need to ask yourself. If you don't trade Manu out, he is that guy that'll be there for 16, either in the wing fullback position or the centres, because he is the best basically in both positions. So Smith would cover that. So that's where I'm looking at him. Do you find that a sound strategy for other people as well?
Yeah, definitely. Round 16 is a little bit tough in some ways because there's so many important teams out. You've got the Raiders, Warriors, Dolphins, and there's just a couple of really annoying teams where we have quite a lot of them in our squad already, and you're going to definitely need some solid plans, and Billy Smith fits into those mid-season plans quite well.
Definitely. Awesome buy, guys, if you need him, for sure, but that doesn't come without any risk. That is for sure. Luki, on the other hand, obviously a few other podcasters have spoken about him, and it's probably mixed results on general thoughts with Luki. Obviously up 56k after that massive score, a low break even, so he will make money. But what do we see from him going forward, and do you still think that he's a good buy? Obviously, thinking about your round 13 team and round 16 as well, he will play both of those. So if you do need an edge, I see him as being a good option. If you don't really need edges, if you have good coverage across those couple of rounds, then could you miss out on him easily?
It's a really tough one to know what happens, because there's also the added factor of Luciano Leilua finally having his court case looked at, and apparently he's absolutely ripping in at training. I saw something about Peyton saying he's absolutely blowing them apart, and he's whether in the middle or in the edges when they're training together, and he can't wait to actually get out on the field. So that just adds another thing that might compete with Luki, but Luki's a quality player, and as he's not really playing 80 minutes already, I don't know if that changes too much. That's the thing, though. Do you want a 500k edge that's playing 60, 65 minutes a game? That is risky territory, but we know he is a quality player and has a lot of momentum going right now.
Yeah, a crazy week for him. I'm in the boat of either way. Like, you can bring him in, you can miss out on him. That's completely fine. There are the potential options in that cheaper range as well. Obviously, the Cardi Party might be back as well. Hey.
Oh, it's crazy season. What is this? Is this day 3 of the Cardi Party, episode 3? It's really interesting. It just never dies.
No, the Cardi Party. This one is you have your 3-day bender. And you go, oh, I'm never doing that again. And then Friday afternoon rolls around and someone says, you want to go for beers? And beers. So yeah. I think that's where we're at with Cardi. He's obviously lost a fair bit of cash. And this news here might change things in terms of the Cardi Party and also potentially Andrew Davey. And that's that Danny Wilder's just reported that he's hearing Parramatta would like to get Joel Fangawe, who has been really out of favour with the Tigers, obviously since they've made a few changes in this off-season, and they're looking to try and get him as soon as possible. So that might mean around 13. That is over a week away now, a week and a bit, until round 13. So that's something that we need to follow as well. and could be a reason to either leave out thinking about Cardi or even potentially Andrew Davey. Because who do you think would come in for, if Joe O comes in, he plays in the middle. Do you think Maddo would get back on that edge?
Short term, I think maybe not so easily because they're missing a couple of middles. Like RCG's out for a while still, and round 13, Paulo in all likelihood goes into Origin. So in the short term, I think he'd go into the prop rotation and might continue as normal, but not too long after that, I would definitely expect sort of him and Hopgood to take that lock role and Madison to move into the edge, pushing one of those two guys out. So I can't see how Madison doesn't play edge if Ofahengawi comes in, because you'll have four huge minute, really good forwards in Hopgood, Ofahengawi, Paulo, and RCG, and I just can't see Maddo, even though he's crushing it at the moment in that role. I think you can't have all five of them in that middle.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm just thinking about Hopgood now, and most likely going to be a purchase for me this week, just to shore up my edge/middle, depending. I think it's going to be edge is what I need, around 13 guy. Him and Luki will be my two. And I think that is very solid, obviously. But that would be the slight worry with him as to what kind of minutes that would end up being. But as you said, with Paulo being out there in 13, 16, 19, I think that it probably doesn't matter for this buy period. It would more just matter if Ofahengawi were to get big minutes and at his cheap price could be an option, I suppose. And it probably means Cartwright would be kicked out of that spot and he'd go back to the bench. But it just creates another number and another bigger minute type of guy that could stuff plans around. So definitely something to follow for sure, guys. Let's talk about B.Trbojevic now. And we have, 2 games of him playing in the second row. In amongst obviously interchange games where you'll see the games here, guys, where he does have sort of decent tackle numbers off the bench in sort of 20-30 minutes. That's when he played on an edge, and then those games that he's got a 32-minute game here off the interchange where he has 4 tackles. So that was clearly in the center position. So we have one good game from him in the second row, an 80-minute performance of 64 points. We also have a 17-minute game for 16 points. I actually can't remember what that was. That was round 19 last year. But what you see there is when he does get solid minutes in the back row, he does seem to score okay. His PPM seems to be solid. What are your general thoughts on him? At 220k, a break-even of 11, dual position, will play 13 most likely. Do we think we just wait until next week and make our decision on him? And also, with the centre position, he obviously covers both of them. Lemuelu and Bird will cover centres, most likely. If you don't have one of them, then sure, Trbojevic will work well. But do you want to play him in your edge? Or would you be happy to fade him and just use him as a potential moneymaker if he keeps the spot next week and does well? There's so many questions.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think he would probably sit in my emergencies unless it was an Origin week, something like that. It's a tough one because this is the best opportunity he's going to get for a good while to stake a claim. Because what have we got? We've got Aloye out with shoulder for 6 weeks or something, and there's 2 others that are also out for 4-6 weeks. We've got Tuolangi and Aaron Woods. So
actually 6 weeks. So
yeah, they're all sort of 4 to 6 weeks, and that's really good for him. But it's Burbo. I mean, he could get moved. He's great utility. It doesn't come without risk. I think you can afford to wait a week and see what's going to happen, because now that Jake is back this week, and then he'll probably go off to Origin next week. It simply comes back round 13. You'll get a good idea of what's going to happen with the rotation in round 13 when Sipley does return.
Yeah, and if he goes at 50 or something, he goes up 40k, 30 odd k, it's not the worst thing to pick someone up at 260 with a little bit more of an idea of what their role is going to be. If you do need to go down, right down to him. If you've got a 300 or 400k guy that you need to get out of your side, he provides that 100k or whatever it is to get up to someone else, then that's fair. You could take the risk, but obviously there is risk. So just be aware of that he is, started in that position twice in his career, and that's since 21. So that's that with Benny. Let's move to Harrison Edwards, who's another big buy of the week that a lot of people are going for. There's also a lot of people going for Tafade still. So who knows what's the best decision there. Harrison Edwards at 378k, a negative break even. Every game he's played this year, there's been 3 of them, he's played 58 minutes plus. Do we continue to see this happening, or does, with Oloapu starting now, Reynolds going back to sort of a middle forward on the bench, do we see, closer to that 60 minutes that he played in those first few games? do we see him potentially losing his spot, or do you think he's just played his way into the team now that he's played really well?
I think he's definitely staked a claim to stay in the team, a bit like Preston did earlier this year. We've got Tatola Mariner on the bench. So I think as somebody who's going to be in the Bulldogs team, he's going to be hard to get out of there now unless he has a form slump. But the thing that did worry me a little bit was that was the first game where he had an actually pretty decent PPM. So round 6 and round 9, he played about 60 minutes and only got low to mid 30s. So he's already approaching 400k. That's getting close to 30 price point. The real only issue is, does he only make 100k instead of 200, 250 if he continues to get big minutes and go really well? So it's not a lot of downside, but it might not be another Jacob Preston. Let's just give that disclaimer.
Yeah, and more expensive than when we were grabbing Preston as well. Something to note, guys, is that his tackle numbers were up massive on the weekend. So he's been, across the 4 other starts that he's had, at decent minutes, either a second row, lock or prop, he has between 34 and 38 tackles, and the lowest is 3 missed tackles, so 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5, and then he had a 0 in lesser minutes there. So is he going to be a 0 to 1 missed tackle type of guy, or is he going to go back to that 3, 4, 5? Meters gain was the exact same. It was just those tackle numbers and obviously a couple of tackle breaks, an offload and a try, which he had never had an offload before this game. So definitely an outlier. You doubt that he's going to be a 55 type of scorer. He might be a 30-odd type of scorer, 40. Let's just give him a 40. If he does average that, he's what? A little bit under 200k that he can make, and he misses around 13. I don't know, could you buy him in round 14? Even if he goes up another 50k, could you do it then if he gets a 60-minute roll and hits like a 43 or something like that? I don't know, it's hard.
I don't know if you can, hey, because if he gets a 40 this week, he probably goes up another 60k and then he's 430 or 440 instead of where he is now. It's now or never, really. It's a bit of an awkward one given his past scoring and round 13 bye, but he isn't a bad buy. He's definitely got money in him. It's just a case of how much.
Yep, I agree. It's a tough one. Let's speak about Jacob Liddle now. A very interesting one at 455 now. A higher break even, so you can definitely watch this week. But Mbai's out of the side with their new coach, and Liddle comes back in. And we know what he can, the type of performance that he can provide. Obviously, the first few games, his PPM was super strong. He scored a try in the first one, almost a PPM point per minute in that second game that he played. And then from there, the highest minutes he's played is a 49. And it seems to me when he does get minutes, he does get attacking stats. It just sort of happens across the game. He picks his spots and he does well. Looks like he'll get back to an 80-minute performance. Is he a buy this week or potentially next week? I suppose the hardest thing is it's the hooker position. You can only have one. And most people will either have Robson or potentially Jeremy Marshall-King. But if you have Grant, Liddle gets a 45 this week, let's say, in 80 minutes or a 50, and then has the potential to make a couple 100k. Would you look to grab him?
I'm actually pretty strongly looking at him this week, not to buy, but just to watch how he goes. I don't know if he'll get 80 minutes. Sullivan on the bench. I wonder if they will persist with a little bit of Ben Hunt to hooker rotation, particularly because he does that in Origin. But if he gets probably anything over 60 minutes, and I'm really, really interested in him, we were looking at him at the beginning of the year for potentially like making money at sort of a 65, 70-minute role he needed to get sort of 8 to 10 points. And he's, about 120k cheaper than that now. So anything over 60 minutes, and I'm actually pretty keen for round 13. Robson, he's okay, but he's not saying buy me in the last few weeks, and he's cheap, but Little's also not too bad either if he gets good minutes.
Way cheaper. And I think he can score pretty much the same at the moment. The missed tackles numbers are ridiculous for Robbo. So Liddle, you would grab him in for round 13. Yes, let's say he gets 53 this week, hits his break even, doesn't move in price. His break even will go lower from that, which is great. He misses one round up until round 20. So I think by round 20, you'd be looking to trade him out anyway, right? You'd be looking to grab Harry Grant or something like that. So he misses one game over the Origin period, which is massive news. Obviously, if you have someone like a Brandon Smith who can... Brandon Smith who can cover 16, something like that in the hooker position. If you can switch between those two, you could make 200k off Liddle. But 65-minute roll I think would be enough. Yeah, definitely someone to look at for sure. Very interesting. Let's talk about Tapine. So 2 games over 50 minutes now in these last two, 53 and a 50 minutes, sorry. Yeah, he's still sitting around that, 48, 49, 50, 53, 50 minutes. So the role hasn't really changed much. He did score a 63 in 47 minutes. So he has that ability to, with that PPM. Would you be looking at him as a buy? I know, like, obviously in your team, he's a clear hold. But other people, would you look at a buy or try and avoid?
He's really interesting because, well, he is cheaper than he was to start the year, and I kind of put him now in the Tohu Harris bracket, but in all honesty, Tohu Harris might even be slightly better. He's a little bit cheaper, and we know that he's got those really big minutes in him, and he isn't coached by Ricky Stewart. So Tapine, I quite like him as a buy. He's actually pretty low ownership now. I think he's about 8% across the board, including like top 100, top 1,000 and stuff. So if he goes well again this week, I think he's a fantastic buy for round 13 and moving forwards. And you can probably even jump on this week if you think that, especially after that interview a couple of weeks ago where he said he thinks he had a little bit more in him, that he might continue to do this. But I mean, like, it's 1 extra minute and 3 extra minutes. That's only a couple of points. And I mean, that might just be a chance when Ricky took him off. So
tell you what, the man's due for a try or some offloads, but he's had 1 game over 1 offload. He's had no line breaks, no try assists, no tries. So to still average, 52 in that time is impressive with the minutes that he can get. So at any point he can pop. Hosking, is he a hold or is he a sell?
That is an excellent question, which I just don't know if we're going to get the answer to until after this week. I think there's very good arguments on both sides because Hosking, when he gets 80 minutes, he's a keeper and a pretty strong one at that. Like he's averaging still 56 or something like that. And all his 80-minute performances have been like mid 50s and the occasional high 40s. So if he does keep that 80-minute role, Liam Martin was playing middle when he came back the other week and absolutely carving it up. So there's good chance that he might, but he has played quite a lot of reduced minutes the last weeks. 1 or 2 were HIA, but in that time period, some of those big minute games were because there were other injuries, maybe, or maybe not because, but it definitely kept him on rather than they had the option to take him off. So there's definitely arguments either side, and you can possibly wait this week because he can hit his break even if he plays 60, if he plays 80 minutes, but yeah, he's a tough one and at an interesting price point you can probably use to get to a gun or just keep him as a keeper.
Yeah, it's a frustrating one for sure. He may end up out of my side, especially if I'm holding Joey Manu, who I think is a better hold than most of those guys this week. But Hosking there at 688, he's going to start to lose a bit of cash if he doesn't get the 80 minutes. The big anomaly here is Scott Sorensen. We just didn't expect that. We thought that now Hosking beating out Garner as a back rower here was going to be great news, and Sorensen's come on and almost played better, to be honest with you. And we know Sorensen was an edge before he moved to the Panthers from the Sharks, and then he's just a great player because he moved to the middle in this Panthers outfit and has absolutely dominated, and then has done so on the left as well. So there's every chance that I don't think they can play both edges for 80 on a consistent basis. So I think Sorensen has earned the spot to play 80. So that's my worry with Hosking, and obviously the buy in round 13 hurts as well. So if he comes out and plays limited minutes, like he passed his HA on the weekend and didn't get back in the squad. Martin is now back. You've got Sorensen there as well doing great things. So there's a lot of negatives there to say that it's almost ready to sell him. So I'm either way on it. I completely understand if you want to hold. But if you're holding this week, I think you're holding through the buy as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, potentially. If he gets 60 minutes again, scores 40, he might be 660 or something like that. And that's a little bit of a blow if you then try and move him on.
Yeah, I agree. So it's a hard one. Either way is completely fine with Hosking. Talk about Preston then. Would he be less of a sell than Hosking if you have both?
There's too many issues this week to really be looking at moving Preston on unless you've got like 24 trades or something left. I think that you've really got to look at other people first. Yeah, he scored another 40, but I mean, Addo Carr's back as well this week, properly this time, we hope. And maybe the Bulldogs can get some spark.
Yeah. Well, with him, the interesting one is obviously playing 16 and 19. So I think if you do hold him this week and then through the bye, then you hold him through that entire period and you can move him on at the end if you like. He'll do a job. He'll have the odd game where he scores a try, which is good. He has 5 this year and has the odd line break in him as well. So I think he's just fine. He won't be that keeper, but he'll do a job through the bye period. If you have enough coverage in 13, then you may as well just hold him because at 634k, he can fluctuate between 600 and 700, I think. Joey Manu, likely to be a hold. Guys, there's a great high chance that he's just out for this week and he probably plays in round 13 if they didn't have the bye. So out for 13 and 14, that's a 2-week hold for potentially the best wing fullback and the best center in the game. So wing fullback sucks. Center is good for 3 players. If Gagai doesn't make Origin as well, that's another option in that center position. Can you believe that he's a chance of missing Origin?
I think they're crazy for not considering him. Like, they've picked him years where he's been dreadful in club and he's absolutely carved up in the Origin arena. He's played there for years and years and he's doing really well this year. So I can't see why they'd all of a sudden go drop him for Hammer or something. So we'll have to see. He's done well this year, but yeah, going back to Manu, I think that ACL sprain, not a rupture, but a sprain for Sam Walker, putting him out for 4 weeks means they'll be absolutely clawing to get Manu back for 14. So I think he's definitely more on the hold side than the sell.
Fair. If they play well this week with Hutcho at 7, is there a world where Manu plays centre when he returns, even with Sammy Walker not being there?
I think they'd have to play really quite well, considering that it is the Dragons. But I mean, they haven't really fired a shot this year. So if Hutchison at 7 does good things for the team, it's possible. But I mean, it's one game. How often do we see the team completely rearranged after one game?
Yeah, and I suppose, yeah, it's true. And then the big thing to think about here is the bigger picture with Manu. Yes, if he moved back to centre for the odd game, but him at fullback in round 16 against the Knights, oh my God. That just sounds ridiculous. That sounds like 100.
90 plus base.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, 300 meters, 14 tackle breaks, line breaks and the like. Yeah, that's there for sure. There's also the potential restings in round 14. So Teddy could be rested in that game, or if he picks up a niggle, he won't play for sure, given his age and everything as well, and the importance of having him later. So round 14, he could be a fullback in the fullback position. Same with 17 and potentially 20 as well. So this is a time to have Manu. Yes, him being out this week hurts, but we have Lemuelu returning. So I think it's worth holding. And you weren't gonna have him in 13 anyway. You'd already had that in your mind. So it's just 1 week out for the guy that's the best player in the game for centre and, well, definitely wing fullback and potentially centre as well. So that's that. It's crazy to think that there's better centres this year than wing fullbacks, isn't it?
Oh, it's back to, 2019 or something like that with Nakora and Bateman with the duel, averaging 60 for half a year. That was so good.
Remember Nakora as a cash cow? What a time. What a time. And Bateman was cheap too, actually. When he first came in, he was like a mid-range, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I think he started at 600 and went over 800 pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah, that's right, because he's averaging like 60 something. All right, Ponga, do you even look at him this week? I think that you are crazy to even look at trading him in, even at the price, with him missing 13 and 14.
For draft, get him in.
Oh, yeah.
For classic, for overall, please do not buy Caleb Ponga.
Okay, head-to-head then. What are your thoughts?
I don't mind him. Look, he completely turned around from that previous game. He fixed up his defense and turned it on in attack. Look, there's still 6 missed tackles. There's going to be negatives, but it's also Kalen Ponga. We know how dangerous he can be when he's on his day. And they do have a little bit of a tough period coming up, but a lot of those games are also going to be missing Origin players. So Manly, they're going to be missing quite a few. And then the Roosters, they're going to be missing quite a few, and they haven't really been going that well anyway. So I actually don't mind Kalen Ponga if you're head-to-head, considering that he's 400k. Who would have thought that he'd get down to that price, especially with the duel?
Yeah, he doubt get much cheaper, but he obviously has a 9 in his game too against some of the slightly better teams anyway. So that's Ponga. Let's go to Fade. If you're trading him in this week, get him out, please. Like there's even a chance that he doesn't even play for like a few months. Like if Branko stays fit and everything, just get him out his side, right?
Yeah, we might have the rare sort of done their dash mid-season rather than ruin their price for next year in round 25, 26, like you sometimes see. That putting that 59 in there, if he doesn't play again, he's probably going to come in priced in the 400s next year or something.
Oh, yeah, the way that, I remember that when we were going through that in the preseason, that seems like a while ago now, when you were going through your spreadsheets and just like, why is this guy got given extra points and all that kind of stuff? Crazy. Let's go to Hopgood then. At 741, he's obviously a little bit more expensive, but the position that he's in, the minutes that are going to be available for him, playing 13, 16, 19, I really don't see him making Origin this year. He could be in the fold for like a 16 or like a round 2 or game 2 or game 3 as well, potentially, but gee, he's a good option, isn't he, in the to cover 2 positions as well.
Yeah, I kept telling people to wait with Ryan Madison uncertainty and Paulo, but the injuries just keep on coming for the Eels, and the only thing that can really stop him from being nearly an 80-minute player throughout most of this Origin period is probably Joe Ofahengawi, and that's just a whisper. It hasn't even happened yet, so I'd still probably prefer to wait until next week, but it's going to be harder because it will be more expensive.
Yeah, okay. What's the theory with waiting until next week, just for Origin, or?
Yeah, just for Origin, plus the Joe Ode news, if that goes through or doesn't go through, and if Madison does or doesn't play. But like, even if Madison doesn't play Origin, stays in Clubland with Sean Lane going down as well, I still think it means he has to have big minutes, and really, there's not a lot going wrong for Hopgood at the moment.
No, definitely not. Yeah, just my thing with trading in a guy in round 13 that misses 14 is that, yes, you gain those points in 13, but likely you're playing with 16 players, or you have to trade in round 14, or you're missing out on that 50 or 60 that he can get, and you're putting in a guy that's going to hit a 20. So, like, I think you're hurting yourself by doing that. But obviously, if you are bringing them in 13, yeah, someone like an Eels player that's going to play 13, 16, 19, then that would counteract that for sure. But it's just something to think about that, if you bring in a guy just before their bye, especially when you can't field a really good 17, likely, like obviously you've got 1 or 2 bad players that aren't going to play or score. You have those 3 teams on the bye, as well as people not backing up from Origin, is something to think about as well, for all of you guys. Adam Reynolds, 660k. He misses this week, unfortunately, as well. He'll be back for that round 13 important one. Do you think he's a sell? Like, is he someone you want to hold over that whole period anyway, considering he misses, 16 and 19 as well? Or do you hold?
I think Adam Reynolds is a sell in round 16. It's pretty nasty cover, missing both those last 2 Origin matches. I think he can probably recoup his cash before then, but only just. So if for some reason he's out another week, then he's probably going to end up in the low to mid 600s instead of back up at 700 where he was. So it's just a bit of a pain. I would probably, if you've got a couple of round 13 halves already that aren't too bad, like you've got Sean Johnson and Dylan Brown already, something like that, I would sell Reynolds. If you have a weaker second half, it's a little bit easier to hold him.
And if you have over 20 trades, you think you're okay if you want to sell him, just go for it?
Yeah, I think so. It's a luxury, but if you have trades, you can pull the trigger on it.
Awesome. Oloapu, I ended up grabbing him my side last week. He got the extra minutes, and now he's starting. So is he someone that could make some good cash trading him in now, or would you go for B.Trbojevic before Oloapu?
I would go probably Oloapu for long term. He won't play round 13. So potentially you could pick him up for round 14, because then he'll be starting to move cash and still probably be sub 300k or just about there.
Yeah.
But yeah, short term, I'd buy Burbo probably this week out of the 2 and Oloapu in round 14. But long term, Oloapu would probably be my pick over the 2.
What do you think he can average? Do you think he's a 35 guy?
It's pretty interesting. I think he's probably at least a 35 guy because his tackle count's pretty good for somebody who's not even playing 60 minutes yet. Like, 51 minutes, 17 tackles. That's sort of Dylan Brown numbers, like low to mid 20s tackles in 80 minutes. So I actually quite like his floor. We haven't seen him do much other than 1 line break, and with a full strength Dogs team, maybe he could go a bit higher.
Yeah, I enjoyed the obviously 47 meters could go up a bit, but 3 tackle breaks in that. So he's obviously pretty lively. He's more of a ball runner than a kicker of the footy. So yeah, hopefully some attacking stats come, especially against a Titans outfit. He might be able to do that in the 80 minutes. We mentioned Tedesco mainly there, as I said, just those last 3 weeks, guys, you need to look at the 56, 42, and 45. But again, if you're going to trade him out anyway, that's completely fine. We go to Lockie Miller. He lost about 35k last week. But again, with the wing fullback position, I just find it very hard to even look at trading him out. He's had 4 shockers in a row. Well, not shockers, but 27, 34, 40, and 34. 7 goals last week was really nice. If he lost the goal kicking, it would make it a bit harder. But what's happening with him? His meters gain have dropped massively over those 4 weeks. Can he bounce back?
I think he probably can't. I think it's the Kalen Ponga factor. I had a look and he averages more than 20 less when Ponga's in the team. The problem is Ponga will be probably missing in round 13 and 16, which would be great for Miller, but not Miller's cash. So you might get some fantastic points over those 2 weeks, but drop a fair bit to maybe even low 500s by the time you sell him. Hopefully he can put together a decent 1 or 2 with Ponga in the squad as well. But yeah, with Ponga, his best score is 43 in 5 matches.
Yeah, okay. That makes it tough. Biggest thing here is probably the ownership number. It's very, very high. So you're not missing out too much if you own him, obviously. But if you look to sell and kind of get away from that, then you need to be bringing in someone that either is going to be scoring better than him, or you have a lot of wing fullbacks and you're happy to move to a different position. That's okay, but I think it's probably worth just copying the price drops, especially considering for me, he's my only wing fullback for round 13, so I can't be selling him personally. SJ, he's probably he's sold by almost 1% of teams this week. Is that stupid?
Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
He's just scored 71. I didn't even look at that. What? I don't understand that at all. What are they trying to do? Chase Nico Hines again after an 80 plus?
Yeah, probably. It's just the buy this week. Obviously, yeah, it happens a bit. But yeah, 67, 71, back to sort of some of his best. He had the 3 lowest scores in a row, and then it was a little bit worrying. But those 2 good scores there, and him not having any tries in those. He had 2 line breaks the week before, 2 tries this last week. As long as he can get 1 attacking stat each week, I think he's going to be a 60 plus guy. So yeah, he's going to be how important. Just tell us how important he is over the bye period.
I think he's going to be exceptional over the bye period. The bye period starts around 13 and finishes up in round 20. And along with the Dolphins, the Warriors have the equal best in the comp over that period, missing only 1 out of those 8 instead of 2 out of those 8 for buys. So any Warriors and Dolphins player are fantastic. Just make sure you have round 16 cover. And to be honest, their run home is pretty good as well. Titans, Tigers, Manly, Dragons, Dolphins. So he's probably one to hold on to for the whole year, in my opinion.
There you go. Don't trade him. Don't be silly. Tatola, what's to speak about him and Flegs in this next one? We spoke about them last week as both being sort of solid buys, and they both delivered 42 and 44. Who's safer for you this week? Now you've seen another week between them.
I actually probably think Flegler. Tatola got 49 minutes, which is fantastic, but Burgess was a late scratching and he's out again this week. So I'm not entirely convinced that the big minutes, as in like 49 minutes compared to like 44 minutes, will continue. But I mean, this week he's still out, so potentially some good stuff happening, and his price is starting to move back in the right direction. He's not a bad buy. I don't mind him at all. But also Flegler, huge minutes on the weekend. There was probably because there was a couple of sin bins and a couple of injuries to Adam Reynolds, but it's good to see that they will keep Flegler on the park for that long.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, he's going to get 50 plus, and then obviously the sin bin kind of hurt him right at the end. But yeah, Tavita, the big thing here is he's played 3 games in a row. That's good signs. His break even is down now, so he will make some money. With Burgess out this week, maybe 45, 50 minutes again. Murray played big ones, so he'll drop down a little bit, but he's going to be out in 13, so you'd expect Tatola to play the 50 minutes again. So there's probably a couple of weeks of good stuff there. And then, yeah, buying round 16, you probably hold him all the way through to round 20 then. Flegler's going to be very similar. They have the same buy schedule, so either way I think is fine. He's obviously a little bit cheaper than Flegs as well. A slightly lower break even for Flegs. Yeah, just overall like a solid. Those minutes there probably goes down to 50 or so, which means he's probably still around that 40 mark, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. it was just really promising that they would keep him on the park for that long rather than sub him off and share it a bit. 66 minutes even with the sin bin is pretty nice, even considering the injuries.
Yeah, PPM wasn't terrific. Even if it was up near 50 without the sin bin, it's still a little bit low in the 0.8 mark for a middle forward, but it's fine. Both decent buys. And then Tyrell Sloan, 393k, continues to burn cash there. 18, 10, and 27. Do you even bother holding him to 13, or is it a sell?
Probably sell.
Yeah.
It was slightly better this week, but really he hasn't done well since the NRL physio put up that little thing saying he might have a problem with his shoulder.
That's true.
Who knows? The Dragons might go okay this week. They've got a reshuffled team with probably one of the better squads they've named this year, so maybe he gets back to it after a few weeks of healing. But yeah, I mean, mid-40s break even, and he can also score you 15. So not definitely a safe one to hold. Definitely.
And let's go to Andrew Davey, who we touched on a little bit earlier. He got a 51 with no attacking stats in this one. What I did look at though, he did play a lot of second row last year with Manly, a bunch of games with big minutes there, and he got nowhere near that 40 tackles that he picked up on the weekend. So yeah, do we think that's more? There's more of that to come, or is that just a bit of an anomaly there?
Yeah, I think it's slightly higher than usual. The Eels have been a bit down in recent times, so the tackle numbers might stay up a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be the norm going forward. He might get 80 minutes, especially if Ofahengaue rumours don't turn out to be true. But yeah, try saver boosted that score a little bit. Turnover tackle. He might get a couple more of those in future weeks, but at 470k, he's on the borderline list of buys rather than a slam dunk one.
Yeah, I look at last year and there's the odd 40 or 50, odd 40, odd 50, but there's a bunch of like high 30s, mid 30s in 80 minutes across that time, and he had that spot locked down. So it's a tough one. The odd try got him to over 50 or a 47 last year. So is he going to be more of that kind of 40 scorer, which only gives him probably 100k or less in price rises, and he would cover obviously over the 13, 16, 19, but yeah, it's definitely a borderline one, and you could go for it if you like. But that's the buy, hold, risk it, and sell for this week. Lockie has a job interview in about 20 minutes, so absolute legend for jumping on the stream. Give him some love in the comments. So big thank you to you, mate, and good luck in your team this week.
Thanks, Jamie. Hopefully pushing up the ranks again this week.
That's right. We both need it. Good luck, guys.